Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer1745 here with my continuing playthrough of the Great War mod for Hearts of Iron 4. I sort of say it that way because it isn't just modding HOI 4, it's making a, World War II World War I, I should say, total conversion. Okay, we want to push on the Austrians. The Austrians are, with German help, admittedly, are successfully pushing on us. We are sort of holding fairly well everywhere except for down here. We are sending over some of our Far East remainder division, but they're going to take a while to get on trains and get over here. But we want to push. Now, because of the situation, they can normally move in enough divisions. So if we just push and concentrate on one spot, they will hit everywhere else. Okay. These guys here are in fair shape. They get to come back into there. I think these guys are going to counterattack there. Since there's only 2 divisions there, let's... well, maybe just one of those divisions. Come in here. And hit there. I think we're going to hit with everything there. Those 2 there. Now, here. Yeah, we'll get you in pushing there. Just reading the chat. No war has broken out yet. Well, I would say there's a war going on between Russia and Ukraine. Oh, did they actually reject Brexit? I think that's for the best. I would call the Ukraine in the state of war with Russia. Now it's... I know we're supposed to be playing this game here, but you got to understand the nature of warfare. Then I'm paraphrasing here, Clausewitz, in that warfare is politics by other means. Well, what is politics? Politics is, or no, warfare is politics by other means. Well, what is politics? Politics is warfare by other means. So warfare and politics are the same thing. Now, that doesn't mean that all nation states are in a state of war with each other, or it doesn't mean all politics are warfare. But they have a similar sort of situation here. We as a species are constantly competing with each other. And on a certain level, I think that's absolutely excellent. It's just best if we could do it without large numbers of people getting killed, but that isn't always the case, hence World War One. So I look at the Ukrainian situation as a ongoing war that the Russians just aren't willing to push very hard on, because, hey, they shot down a Dutch passenger liner. I don't know what they thought they were shooting at, whether they go, oh, here's this Dutch air flight going across Ukrainian airspace, and if we shoot it down, it's going to get everybody upset at the Ukrainians or something because they didn't concede. I don't know the motivation of if they knew it was that, or if they just, hey, there's an aircraft up there, let's shoot it. It's probably the bad guys. I don't know what that was, but we can't forget that. Yeah, I understand NATO gets involved, but right now, or as of, I don't know, 10 days or 15 days or so ago at least, the U.S. has a armored brigade deployed to Poland for training purposes. And a U.S. armored brigade is a significant thing. And that is there directly to confront Russian expansionism. So, sorry, no, I'm not set up to be able to do that yet on Twitch, but thanks for the thought. For the cheer, yeah. So someday we will get there. So yeah, Ukraine, okay, here's the end goal of Putin is reestablishment of the Soviet Empire. And I do believe he is not a communist. So that's his end goal. Now, Putin also has the end goal of not destroying his country, meaning he isn't planning on sending in divisions and are going to go to a direct war with NATO, like you say. So he isn't going to do that. I know I am probably not the best person to run a major country or anything, but I would be putting out, or I would do a live fire exercise. I would send that armored brigade to Ukraine and do a live fire exercise within Ukrainian territory, say like this part of Ukrainian territory. And basically dare the Russians to shoot back, and if they do, shoot them. And not leave internationally acknowledged Ukrainian territory. Russkaya Imperia, not the Soviet. Yeah, I understand what you're saying about that, but I still think he sees it as his ads. I because his Soviet background, I think he sees it in terms of the Soviet Union. But yeah, I get your point. Patriotic Brit, I hope that's the case. I hope Britain just leaves. And then, once they're out, then like any other nation that's outside of the EU, whether that's the US or Argentina or India, negotiate relations with the EU, whatever they may be. Whether it's British citizens living within the EU or EU citizens living within Britain, what are their status and rights? Negotiate all that out. Crimea is part of Ukrainian territory. Big Russia doesn't care what small Anglos call it. Ah, well. But they do care where U.S. armored brigades go. And I don't think, notice I say think, I don't think the Russians have anything that can stand up to a U.S. armored brigade. Yes, I know export models aren't the same. But when we saw, what sort of first and second Gulf War, what our U.S. armored brigades could do to reasonably modern former Soviet, but yeah, equipment. I'm not saying it would be quite the one-sided no tank loss type warfare that we saw in some of the Iraq battles, but I don't think they really have a prayer on winning. Well, I would say it's more than just a staring contest, because Russia is actively, well, they've obviously occupied Ukraine. I mean, not Ukraine, Crimea. But they are actively supporting Russian volunteers that are fighting a war within the Ukraine, and that's like North Vietnam sending volunteers into South Vietnam for the Vietnamese War. So that's Yeah, we'll see what China can do. I'm wondering what the China situation is going to be coming soon with Trump. But because they are right now having they've been having meetings, negotiating stuff for with China now. I don't know what that agreement is supposedly like, and I don't know if Trump will sign it. But because they're in Buenos Aires now, of course, as we were talking about. So we will see how that goes. I don't know how that will go ultimately. China is a bigger threat. I agree with you, Azads. What the problems I see are twofold with Russia. One, like it or not, because of NATO and because of historical precedents, we, the U.S., we, the Western community of nations, are more likely to go to war over, say, the invasion of Latvia, Lithuania, or Estonia, which are members of NATO. More likely to go to war over them than, say, China invading Nepal. I mean, India, now see, again, from your perspective, living in India, that's different. India is more likely to go to war with China if China invades Nepal or something like that. But America, I don't know if America is going to go to war with China if it starts putting divisions into Nepal. I don't see it. That doesn't mean we aren't going to do sanctions and all kinds of other things, but it's probably not likely to break out onto a war where going after, say, the Baltic states or Poland or whatever might lead to war. We already should be at war with Russia because we had a signed agreement with Ukraine so that Ukraine would give up its nuclear weapons if the United States guaranteed the territorial integrity of the Ukraine, basically from Russia. And we did that. And we betrayed the Ukrainians by not doing something, whether it means going to war or, like I say, do a live fire exercise, and if somebody shoots at us, we shoot back within Ukrainian territory. So, yeah, Russia's actions are more likely to get the Western community into war. Two, China is not a gambling, well, it is a gambling nation, but it is not a gambling nation politically or internationally, okay? China is very thoughtful and very methodical. China isn't going to accidentally invade Taiwan one day. You know, they're not going to like wake up and go, "Oh yeah, hey, yeah, that Taiwan thing, it's our province. We're invading." They're going to do it as part of a plan. And they're going to do it when they think they have it done right and can do it successfully. So that whether that's tomorrow or in 200 years, it's the plan that they're working towards. Okay? Where with Russia, we see this sort of Hitlerian gamblerism. And so I see not only, say, whether it's, you know, going after, because it's a NATO country or we're going into war, but I just see Putin taking more chances, more gambles, more that to more likely lead to war than anything I see in China. So bigger threat China, more immediate threat Russia. That's how I see it. I could be wrong. Let me check out some of the chat here. I've been just sort of talking and barely. Well, yeah, you do know that you have had border skirmishes with China, Azads. I'm sure you're aware of that. We're reaching some sort of detente where we keep the Indian Ocean region and they keep South China Sea. That'd be interesting if that's true, Azads, because I thought China was getting basing rights in Sri Lanka, and I know they have basing rights right next to the U.S. base in Djibouti. So that certainly seems like they're pushing into the Indian Ocean region. Um, yeah, sorry, I don't know who the prime minister at the time for the earlier border skirmishes or Tibet. Yeah, I know. He died a short while ago. George Bush the elder. I would go good man, but he gave us one promise that he looked into the uh, camera and said, "Read my lips," and then within a year or so, he breaks that promise. So, yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean I'm happy he's dead or anything, but we all knew he was like, and he was a good man. It just he broke his promise, and that really upset a lot of people. And it wasn't just like, "Hey, I'm not going to raise your taxes." No, read my lips. No new taxes. 6 months later, yeah, new taxes. We need more taxes. Oh, Nehru. Okay. Yeah, I know who Nehru is. I just didn't know who was the prime minister at that time. Don't know Indian history that closely. Yeah, you're right, JP. They do, but why do they need African interests? Why does China need African interests? Not saying they shouldn't have them or they can't have them, but why do they feel they need them? I don't understand. Yeah, I know resources. They are definitely looking to have resources. Wow, this is all messed up down here. German Empire, intermixed with the British and whatnot going on. But why do they need to have? Why do they think they need military access to the region? Yeah, you're right that they need the access, but do they need the military access? Because you have to look at. I know this is. I'm gonna have to relabel this episode as a talking episode, but how do I put this? Okay, long term. Long term, China can build carriers. China can build a blue water fleet. And I know it does have a carrier too, but I mean really good carriers. I don't know if China is ever really going to put the effort into a blue water navy. I'm not saying not build one. I'm not saying have lots of people be sailors. But if you look at the Soviet and to a degree the Russian Imperial Navy before it, it spent most of its time in harbor. And so it wasn't necessarily a very good navy. And the U.S. was sure it was going to wipe out, and because I knew naval officers at the time, and I don't think they were just bragging because of the types of conversations I had with them. They were pretty sure that they were going to be able to deal with the Soviet Navy as it stormed out of port. Sure, they were worried about the submarine force because that was actually sort of an elite force within the Soviets, at least the core of it was. But beyond that, they weren't really that worried about the Soviet Navy. I think the Soviet Navy got way too overbuffed up in many of the war games that were played. I just don't think that they, equipment doesn't equal effectiveness of the equipment. It's the sailors and everything else. So I don't know if China is really going to have a proper blue water fleet. But whether it does or it doesn't, I'm looking at the geography here. I'm taking you very serious, JP, about it feelings it needs access to oil, which, can be in this region, other minerals, which are in this region. And I'm looking at this as at a military aspect. This is different than just simply saying, yeah, we'll buy if you put it on, ships to send it to us. But this is like, we're going to secure it in one fashion or another with military interaction. Azads, of course, is very aware that India is here. But I'm still looking at the American ability to go everywhere in the world at sea. And I just don't know what logistically it's going to try to support. Now, it may think the world isn't willing to shoot at its ships. You're very right, JP, about that 300 years to build a naval tradition. That's a lot of what I'm talking about, but that's a very good way to say it. And I know somebody else, you're quoting somebody there, I presume. The tradition. And of course, we inherited, literally, not just at the end of World War II, but we inherited by being British before we were independent Americans. So we inherited the British naval tradition as well, in both military and merchant. Yeah, and I get the military support for governments in the region there. I don't know what it's thinking though. Still, because it's going to run smack dab into, shall we say, Anglo-American. Because if you don't realize it, there are still lots of British training missions to like Kenya, Tanzania, Zambia. British military is still active in those countries, and they're training missions, not occupation missions or counter-terrorist missions. These are just various types of training stuff. But the British military is still very active in this part of the world. And this is sort of where China is also pushing into here too. I just don't know what it's really thinking of doing. I'm just trying to imagine it because what's its end goal? I believe China, unlike adventuresome, well, we talked about the general end goal of Putin is reestablishing, whether it's the Russian Empire, the Soviet Empire, or whatever, but he's definitely doing that. China wants to be up there with or above the U.S. as a superpower in the world. That's fine. And the only way they can do that is if they do it themselves. You can't do it by deciding to conquer Vietnam and Burma and Korea. You have to build it yourself internally. There's more than just big armies marching around the world, and I don't know if they've really grasped that yet. The Soviets never did. That's why they lost the Cold War. They built the big missiles, had all the jets, like I was saying, built a big navy of ships, but they were they were only a superpower because they had those things, but it exhausted them. And all of you, China wants to secure trade routes. Yeah, that's what we're talking about, trade routes. And yeah, because, and so like I was saying, and anyone who knows, the U.S. was nowhere near exhaustion in the Cold War at the end. We weren't just barely affording all of our weapon systems. No, we were fat and happy with our economic situation when the Cold War ended. So China has to internally do a similar sort of thing, and I'm hearing, oh, China is a big growing economy. It's economy. Yeah, but that depth of economy is razor thin, in my opinion. It is always teetering on collapse. And I don't mean just the idea of, stock market crash, blah, 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 bail out banks, bail out big companies. No, I mean complete sort of Great Depression or worse types of crash. Think of Weimar Republic type of economic collapse. I really think China is always teetering on that. So, and AZ, of course, brings up, it's 7,500 kilometer range, which I'm not quite sure where Kalatia is, but sorry, I know where Hong Kong is, so I'm guessing you're going in this direction. But is that Colombo or something? Another word going for there, but I don't know. See where? Yes, the U.S. has Diego Garcia down here. I know it still is officially British property, but we get it. But if you were to remove Diego Garcia, if you were to remove the Okinawa, because I think that's where we're currently based out of in the Pacific primarily, that's not Hawaii, you know, further east than Hawaii, because we moved out of the Philippines. But if you were to get rid of Okinawa basing, you were to get rid of Diego Garcia basing, because Diego Garcia is infinitesimally small. Yeah, you're right, JP. And I know I'm sort of analyzing here. Is the capital of Bengal? Okay, capital of Bengal. I would have. Okay. Okay. Didn't know that was the capital of Bengal, because Calcutta is in India, right? I'm pretty sure it's still in India where the current border is. But yeah. So to properly deal with anything, India or China should plan to have a navy that could sail from here, around here, through here, to here, without having any okay, Calcutta. Okay, so Calcutta is in Bengal? Okay. Yes, Azads. I know it by the old imperial names. And I know Mumbai is Bombay. Um, but at least I hope I got that right. We still call Burma or Burma, not Myanmar. But so they need to be able to literally go around the world the long way and support themselves effectively. And China can't. I mean, our basing in Djibouti is good for us to have. Our basing in Diego Garcia is good to have. But we don't require that to fulfill our missions at sea. Good, thanks, ASAT. I didn't want to look a fool, but I know things. Don't know everything, but I know things. So yeah, old names, new names. Okay, well, we're going to end this episode of the Great War mod, which we barely played the Great War mod and analyzed India's expansion, or no, sorry, not India's, China's expansionism versus Russian expansionism, and how likely they are to cause major, not just minor local chaos, but major chaos, you know, world war type chaos in the world. And that's what we were sort of looking at. Thanks so much for watching. Please don't give this too many down thumbs for this video, but yeah, I will be labeling it as such. So see you all next time for more actual Great War playing.